Panam. Sure could use a rocket launcher right about now, don't you think? The girl teased with a big smile that did not fit the circumstances. Oh, shut up. She snapped and grumbled even if Motoko was right. Sorta. Halfway through the morning a group of Rafanshiv had started trailing them. Panam had hoped with how dangerous her baby looked to the average gonk that it would keep them away, but as the first hour passed being trailed more Rafan had joined up shadowing their route. Looking at the horizon she grimaced. She recognized the trap that was coming. It wouldn't be long now. Panam put the pedal down, hoping the terrain and her suspension would get them away. It hadn't. Want me to take the turret? Motoko asked suddenly, as she took a hard turn around a bend on the mix of desert and hills they were running through. No. They aren't in range. It would be a waste of ammunition. If we don't have a choice but to fight, then we should find a flat ground. I'll be able to help more then. Motoko offered and Panam rolled her eyes, hitting the gas again to try and get some speed on this old dirt path. They are faster than us. Flat means they catch up. She snapped, eyes looking up into the cameras to see how close they were getting. Closer now. Yeah, but I can't shoot them like this. Get us flat. I'll let them know we have some fangs. Panam looked over at the girl and instantly turned back to the road. That smile was a little too bloodthirsty for a teenager. Stupid idea. Fine. She growled. It wasn't like she had a better one. She jerked her wheel, starting to climb up the dirt hill, her truck roaring as she felt the tires spin, but eventually she got the traction and she managed to ford sideways up the hill. Then she hit the top of the hill, and it flattened out as she turned off. She wasn't going in the right direction anymore, but at least this area was flatter. Old roads crisscrossed this region. Most didn't go anywhere anymore, but she landed on top of one, the slightly bumpy road not something her warhorse gave a shit about. She gunned it. And from behind she watched 1, 2, 3. Then another 3 vehicles all come roaring over the same edge. Looks like now that she wasn't on the rocky twisting lower road it was time. They're coming for us now. Yeah, finally. The girl said, suddenly pulling her seatbelt as she started pulling the entire belt out of the system. Then she stilled, grabbing her Nakamata and seemingly taking a moment to figure something out, and then she wrapped the seatbelt around her shoulder. What are you? Panam managed before Motoko flashed her a smile and pushed open the passenger door. The flare of dust and grime was instant, and already making Panam want to kick the girl out the damn truck, but then she disappeared. Panam's jaw dropped. She looked over, seeing the girl's chrome hand had grabbed onto the top door jamb and remained latched onto the roof even if her hand was backwards. Motoko? She asked as she heard the thump of the girl moving around on the roof of her baby. Scorpion, what the fuck? She hissed, focusing back on the road now that her passenger could very easily be thrown off. How was she even staying up there? A shot echoed from above and Panam felt her heart beating staccato, actually picking up. This kid was crazy. No wonder Scorpion liked her so much. Panam realized she had brought in someone truly out of their mind. But she looked in her rear view, where a Mizutoni Shion with a hole in the crystal dome was veering off, not quite losing control, but seemingly done with their pursuit. Another shot and Panam watched another Rafan realize they might not have the range to hit us, but we could poke them just fine apparently. The second car broke off, and then to her relief more and more cars broke. No more shots came. Instead, a few moments after all of the Rafan broke off, Motoko knocked on the roof and Panam realized that the passenger door being almost entirely closed had locked her out. Rolling her eyes, she let off the gas slowly, so the kid could get back inside without killing herself. Reaching over once we slowed down to a more safe speed, she reached over and popped the passenger door open and managed to kick it all the way open, and then Motoko came rolling back inside. Face and hair covered in dust and grime from being up top, mouth closed, to hide the tooth-filled smile she had before. But the brat was still smirking. That was insane. I'd give it like a solid 8 on the cool shit I've done meter, was her reply. Panam looked over and then back to the road. She couldn't help it. She snorted out an aborted laugh and just shook her head. At least the insane kid was on her side. That night we were once again camping. Panam complaining about me jumping out of the cab had eventually died off and instead been replaced with a quiet sort of melancholy. I was on the other hand pretty hyped up. The only thing that could have made that cooler was if I had my HMG. Nekomata was cool, but when it came to vehicle combat, stepping out with an HMG was on another level. Despite the fire, Panam wasn't cooking travel chili tonight. Just pulling out something pre-packaged and eating it down once it was warmed on the fire. Which meant I had to do the same within double XL. I sighed as I pulled the burrito off the pan and sniffed at it, nose crinkling at the rather unappetizing smell. "Why bring so many if you don't like them?" she asked, and I just scoffed. "My brother loves them, and we had a ton of them already. I didn't have a lot of time to get food for the journey. Kinda glad I brought them. I would have brought a lot less food if I had to actually buy stuff, and I might be going hungry by now." Nomad rules. Always bring way more food than you expect to eat, she said before digging into the bag of steaming. "Nope. I don't want to know." That looked like bugs. "Should get there sometimes tomorrow afternoon, unless we get chased again." "Think that's going to happen?" I asked in turn. We hadn't seen any sign of the Raffen once we sent them packing, but that didn't mean everything. "Maybe. They don't like to go after difficult targets just like anyone, but sometimes they might have to. Keep their group together, prove they are the strongest. That kind of shit," Panam explained around a big crunchy bite of nope. I grumbled as I bit into my burrito. "I'll keep watch tonight then." "No, don't argue with me. I can stay up for days at a time if I have to without any issue. Sleep well, and I'll make sure we don't get snuck up on." Panam bit into her. "Nope. Yeah, bag of nope, that's all I was going to process from that." "Fine," she grumbled, and I nodded. Not long after, as she squirmed into the tent, I settled on top of the truck's roof and kept an ironed ear out. We made much better time the next day. The roads were still more guidelines than anything, but more and more of the spider web of roads were actually semi-still together, giving us longer and longer stretches where the warhorse could really let loose. "We should be there before the sun sets. Unless we make camp early," Panam offered, but the way we were both checking the horizon had already confirmed what the plan would be. Twice we had seen Nomad or Raffen vehicles on the horizon. They could be following us, and we weren't going to let them ambush us if that was the case. I was doubly glad that my stats let me go without boredom, because there wasn't much to look at. Trees sometimes. Dirt sometimes. Playing I Spy while traveling would just start with brown on every question. It was that bad. It was almost heartbreaking to see the world so devastated. Fucking cyberpunk. Bioplagues and shit ruining everything. I sighed a bit but kept lookout. Nothing I could do about it. "And there she is," Panam muttered, and I looked away from the horizon around us to see the beginnings of Seattle out in the distance. It wasn't quite as flashy and full of lights as Night City. No massive advertisements in the sky, but it was a city. "Finally," I muttered a little sullenly. I was so ready for a shower. I had dirt and dust in places I didn't want to think about. Anakin had it right. Fuck sand. It's not so bad. You can't be a nomad without enjoying the camping life. "Well, it's a good thing I don't want to be a nomad then." I grumbled at her, but I shook the irritation away. We weren't out of danger yet. I pushed myself back into focus. "Yes, we are here on business," Panam repeated for the 10th time to the board customs agent. We had been stopped on the highway into Seattle at a border checkpoint. The fact the border was just a city border and yet was treated as important as a country border told me a lot about how Seattle saw itself within the Free State. I was bored. It wasn't like I was the one in charge here. Looking around the dark, barely air-conditioned room, I noticed the most interesting thing was the flags painted on the wall. First was the Pacific Northwest Free State flag. It had faded over the years, but was still there. Then in much fresher paint was the Noosa flag. Something they probably added after the Unification War ended. Not that it had really done as it was stated. The Free States were still basically free, just gave lip reading to the Noosa as their federal government. And because of it, Arasaka was back in Night City, which had seceded from California entirely to become its own little city-state. As if Arasaka didn't rule Night City. I noted Panam adding some bills to her papers almost in aggravation, and a moment later those bills were pocketed and we were sent on our way. "Fucker," she hissed as she finally climbed back into the warhorse. "Let's be honest. A bribe was always going to be our path in. Fucking bitch said the papers would get me in without trouble. Panam argued as she slammed a fist into the steering wheel to let out some irritation before hitting the gas as we got the green light to leave the border and be allowed into Seattle. Ice-covered mountains, and large buildings. It was just like North Carolina in a way. The same food, the same malaise. I shrugged. Glad we were through, now we just had to drop off our delivery and our gig was complete. I'm going to find a motel to stay at. Panam offered and I perked up instantly. Yes please. She laughed at me a bit as we drove in between the first of the big buildings. I could really use that shower. The motel we found was the same as every motel I had seen in Night City. Really there just wasn't much difference. A bored attendant at the door, overpriced payment for basic things that we didn't need. And thankfully a warm shower, if it wasn't the cleanest place I'd ever been in. After using up all the hot water I could and finally feeling sand-free, I slipped into some fresh clothes, loaded up on my normal outfit, and headed over to Panam's room. Hey, I'm going to explore for a bit. I called out after I knocked. I heard some thumping and Panam appeared at the door wearing basically the same thing I was, only she still had a towel in her hair. She opened her mouth probably to argue but after a moment she stopped herself. Be careful. This isn't Night City. Things aren't done the same way here. I'm just going to wander around a bit. Maybe find a club and meet some locals. I've never been to Seattle before. Like I said, this isn't Night City. Police, gangs, everything is different. She warned but I just nodded happily. I know. Exciting isn't it? I asked with a smirk that had her scoffing but she nodded. Be back tomorrow morning. We will have our drop-off around noon. I just nodded as I walked away and then out of the motel, onto the mean streets of Seattle. I took a moment as I hit the street level to just look around. First thing first. The entire city was less populated than Night City. Not by a huge degree. I mean there were quiet spots in Night City as well, but having spent so long in one city almost completely overpopulated you got a feel for it. I turned and walked down the street. Street level wasn't quite as bad as Night City with how many adverts were around, but it was still pretty bad. Very few sections of the street were dark, leaving the whole place a diorama of neon lights on concrete. Yet it was less populated. Instead of pushing through a horde of people moving one way or the other depending on the time of day, I only had a few people wandering past me. My goal really was just to look around. As I wandered I realized that moving around a city without a car was kind of a pain in the ass. The side eye I gave a parked car only lasted a moment before I shook it off. Casual theft was kinda rude. I preferred looting. It would be hard to find some scabs or something here. I groaned as I continued walking, just going down the street and seeing what was here. The whole city was laid bare. Surely something was happening around here? Liam Tremblay. I already told you. We aren't working for the rats. Put it out of your head. He snapped at the continued questioning. Come on Liam, think of the eds. Maria begged as she followed after him out onto the street from Hab Block P10. Not going to happen Mary. The rats are scumsuckers. We won't see nary a touch of the eds. They can't betray everyone that wants to work for them Liam. If they do, then none will even want to. I'm pretty sure they do betray everyone that wants to work with them. That's why they are the rats. Liam argued with a sigh running a hand through his barely styled hair. He had been up for hours trying to keep his little gang from going into the rats. Piece of shit. A voice cursed out as a loud thunk echoed through the alley and they both looked over to see a teen neither had ever seen before kicking the shit out of one of the drink vending machines for a moment. Never should have given it any eddies. The girl snapped as she continued to kick the ever-living shit out of the machine. Who the fuck? Some outsider? Mary asked and Liam shrugged. Definitely not a local. Her accent was all off, and she wasn't anyone he had seen before. She was armed though. A pistol on her back, and a knife. Chrome arms, fully on display, which was definitely a choice. Hey. Outsider bitch. Stop kicking our shit before I kick the shit out of you. Mary called out as she stomped over. His red-haired friend as always, quick to jump into shit at a moment's notice. Huh? Oh. Yeah, probably pointless. She agreed and stepped back from her attack. Higher. Yeah, higher too fucking. Mary, let it go. She stopped. Liam cut in, trying to keep Mary from picking another pointless fight. Hey. This is Cougar Claw turf. I don't know you, so you better clear off. Stop smacking up our shit. PFFT. The girl, despite keeping a flat face that was reddening a little, let out the noise of a tire letting out air before faux coughing and shaking herself a little. Was she fucking laughing at them? Liam felt his own quick temper lighting up at the thought. The fuck you laughing at? Sorry. It's just cougar slang where I come from. You know cougars? Like older women that prey on. Yeah, you don't care. I just had that thought and it made me laugh a bit. Sorry. I'm sure your gang is preem. Don't mind me. I'll show you just how much I mind. Mary looked like she was going to start swinging, but Liam quickly grabbed her. Let it go, Mary. Let's go. We have to deal with the rats. Don't have time to deal with some random gonk. The girl wasn't looking at Mary or Liam. He suddenly realized her high-end optics were looking behind him. Kuroshi? He thought pointlessly as he turned and stopped cold. At the end of the street was a Ville4 Alvarado. But that wasn't what made Liam realize something was up. Because the tags on the car were little cartoon rats. The rats were here. Fuck, Mary. He demanded, and she turned and noticed the same thing. The door opened and Boss Franco stepped out. A moment later one of the gonks stepped out and threw a long coat over his shoulders. Of course he just had it thrown over and didn't actually put his arms in. It was meant to hide his hands behind his back so he could shoot you without warning. Well. If it isn't Kitty Claw Liam. Come on, boy. We got some chatting to do. The older teenager called out and Liam felt frozen. The only reason the rats would be here is if someone from the gang had ratted Liam out. That he was going to refuse to be part of the rats' little gang group. Liam. Get out of here, Mary. He whispered to her quietly, realizing what was about to go down. Fuck that. I'm not gonna be a fucking rat. She snapped, and Liam wanted to argue that running to save your life didn't make you a rat. Especially when they were fucked. He adjusted his jacket, loosening up so the holster of his unity would be free. Hopefully he could draw faster than rat bastard Franco. Fuck, even if he did, that meant the SPD would be on his tail after. He didn't have the eddies to make them stop caring like Franco did. I feel like a tumbleweed is about to cross over. A voice behind him muttered, and he scowled at the distraction but ignored it. He didn't have time for the gonk outsider. Much less one that was likely about to be silenced after he was killed too. He took 4 steps forward and stopped, putting the entrance to his block to his right, as the rat continued sauntering over. I heard you ain't happy with my offer. Now what part about it made you think it was something you could refuse in the first place? Franco asked as he stopped a few feet away. His goons, all had shooters. All were ready for war, and here Liam was with just a pistol and Mary who didn't even carry iron. Just a knife. What are you doing here, Franco? It's only been a couple hours. Your message said we had a few days to discuss your offer. That was before I heard you cut off your crew and told them you were refusing. Bad move, little cat. See, I want all of 10 to listen when I say something. That doesn't mean some cats can tell me no. The cougar claws are st. PFFT. The noise of air escaping a tire came again from behind him, and he noticed that Franco wasn't happy about it either. The man's eyes narrowed as he looked behind them. Then he heard the sound of a can popping open. He looked back and the girl was popping open a can of orange Cybershock that she had gotten from the vending machine. Wasn't that machine broken? Once she took a sip she cleared her throat. Sorry, don't mind me. Who the fuck is this? Some rando. He responded back, but he knew Rat wouldn't let it get away. So he didn't say anything, watching as Franco obviously considered how he was going to murder the girl. That's a nasty glare there, pal. You might want to put that away. The girl said, suddenly her own eyes locked onto the rat's. This of course only sealed her fate. Yeah? You think some jumped up nobody bitch has the right to tell me where I place my optics? How about I? Bored now? And Liam gasped, as within a single moment she had a gun in her hand. A Lexington, and despite Franco's attempts to dodge she pulled the trigger and gunfire echoed through the alley. Liam leapt away. The rat's guards would retaliate and they tried. He hit the ground hard and looked up in time to see the two men that had followed Franco into the alley raise their weapons only for them to click without any bang. Then they were gunned down casually, with almost disinterest. The girl wandered over and put a few more bullets into them, seemingly to make sure. Hey, you know of any ramen joints around here? He blinked as she walked over to him and kneeled down, squatting right in front of his face without seemingly a care in the world. Huh? Ramen. Noodles in broth. Tasty shit. You know of any places around here? Yeah? Great, send me the deets, yeah? He scrambled to do so. He honestly wasn't sure if she was threatening him with the way she was tapping the pistol on her knee, but he wasn't going to find out. That's kinda far. Oh hey. New car. She chirped as she walked over to the men, and pulled the car keys off the guard that drove Franco around. He watched her go for a while. Bloody footprints leading out of the alley with every step. Hey. Mary called out, startling Liam as he noticed she had jumped into a bunch of trash to avoid getting shot too. Huh? The girl called out, turning. Who are you? I've never seen you before. Yeah, I'm just visiting. I'm from Night City. She called out with a guileless smile as she waved a chrome arm over her head and turned back towards Franco's car, which she promptly stole, driving off. I've heard rumors about people from Night City, Mary said, looking to Liam, and he just nodded. If that was the level of Night City teens, he was suddenly feeling even less confident than before. A belly full of good food that wasn't XXL burritos or nomad chili was exactly what I needed. Sure, I had killed some gonk for it, but he threatened me first. If he didn't want to get shot, he shouldn't threaten people. Duh. I would have to ditch the vehicle soon though. I wasn't sure what the rules for this kind of thing were here in Seattle. I mean, in Night City I wouldn't even worry about it, but this was a whole new place. People were different here. The sharp, suspicious eyes as people kept an eye out all around them was gone. Instead there were more people hanging out on the streets, fucking around, stopping and chatting. It wasn't the constant get to where you need to be like it was in North Carolina. Also, I had expected that arrogant fuck to be tougher. He had some chrome, sure, but not enough protecting his skull. His goons were nearly pure meat. One of them had even tried to run once he realized his gun wasn't working, which was kinda weird. Normally they would have dropped their weapons and attacked as one, or at least took cover and pulled a side gun. Seattle was a really weird place. Ringing. I blinked at the call. Huh? Hiromi? Motoku, are you in Seattle? I've been calling for like 2 days. How was the trip? Panam didn't do anything weird to you, right? Whoa, slow down. It's nice to hear from you. I'm in Seattle. I'm eating at a ramen joint over here. Food's about the same, which is nice. We had to go around a big Raf and Shiv movement, so it took a bit longer to get here. This is our first night. You aren't hurt? Nah. I shot at them a few times and they took off. We were a bit too tough for them to bite into. How's everything going over there? Oh. Well, Malcolm crashed his car. He's okay, and the car is fine too. But you should have seen how mad he was. Don't tell him, but it was honestly hilarious. Oh no. That car is his baby. How bad? Not too bad. He took a turn too hard from what I understand. He isn't sharing the whole story, of course. Just bashed in the rear end a bit. He hit a light pole. NCPD were not happy. PFFT. I told him he needed to go slow for a while until he got used to her. Yeah, well. Everything else is okay. Quiet. I spoke to June. He's doing okay, but Fujimura has got him on guard duty, so I didn't chat with him for long. I'll have to call him. Yeah. But only after we are done. Tell me about your trip. How is Seattle? Are you taking pictures of everything? The trip was mostly boring and dirty. Don't recommend. Seattle is weird. People are way less worried about getting shot. I shot some punk gangster and his henchman. It was kinda random. Motoko, how long have you been in Seattle? Like 4 hours? Maybe 5? Motoko, we have to talk about your killing people thing. Hiromi said with a sigh that came through the call. You know Seattle isn't Night City. What if SPD comes after you? Wait. Is that even a thing? I stopped myself because I almost just asked if the police tried to stop murders. Wow. Is this the feeling you get when you realize your morals are super skewed? Hey Hiromi? I think I might be a little weird. The line went silent for a while as I slipped on some more noodles waiting for Hiromi to get back on the line. Did her parents bug her or something? Motoko. Just. Maybe stick to Panam, and come back. Soon. Yeah, I think I'll head back to the motel and go to sleep. I just wanted to explore a bit and get some chow, but Seattle is kinda wider than Night City, less stuff in walking distance. I finished the last of my ramen slurping it up and headed out to my new car. As I started driving back to the motel I was still chatting with Hiromi. So you have your meeting tomorrow? Are you ready? Yeah, I have weapons and armor, and I'll just be backing up Panam to make sure she gets out. She doesn't think there will be trouble, but you, oh my god. Is that an arcade? I gasped aloud as I did a rather dangerous U-turn to find a spot near what I had just spotted. Motoko? Hiromi. I just saw an old-style arcade. I saw arcade machines. Okay? I'll talk to you later, Hiromi. I hung up as I ran across the street to enter into. Well, it looked kinda like a bar, but it had a ton of old arcade machines. I didn't recognize any of the games, which honestly kind of made it better. Sure, I didn't see Street Fighter 2, but I bet whatever these games were would be fun. I don't have any quarters, I muttered. None of the machines had updated payment. Just the old quarter inputs. Hey kid. Get away from those. Those are antiques. The man behind the bar called out, pointing a dirty rag at me. I looked away from where I had kneeled down to check the quarter tray, desperate for any hope. Yeah, I know. You got this thing on autoplay or something? I need to kick some ass for a few hours. I called back over the loud ambience of the bar. The stink of smoke and alcohol was heavy, but I could deal with that for some good old gaming. A kid like you wants to play the old stuff? Let's see then. The guy behind the bar said as he tossed down a rag and a glass, nodding to another worker before coming around. He walked behind the machine and hit a switch and it turned on to free play. Don't want people to come in and trash my machines. These things are expensive. Yeah, I bet. This would be almost 100 years old. Well, if it was original. It's not. The game I was talking about was some fighting game, but it literally looked like an arcade cabinet you would see in the 80s. Cartoonish characters on the side of old wood, with an actual CRT screen fizzing a little from age, but still clear. Hey. Interesting you can spot that. He muttered. I looked over the machines. Honestly, it was mostly the condition. I had seen arcade machines after just a few decades. They tended to be burnt out, and rough. But these were pristine. No way you would see pristine machines after nearly a century. If you can give me a challenge, I'll let you play on any of them that you want. As long as you don't break anything. Deal. Dash. Mwahaha. I laughed evilly, just like the character on the screen. Evil Chun-Li basically was my new favorite character. Damn kid. The owner of the shop, as it turned out, grumbled as I wrecked him. I hadn't at first. It had taken me a while to remember the controls, but that was like 2 games before I was pushing him hard. I wasn't even really a fighting game lover. I did end up playing a lot, but more as someone to play against than because I was interested. Hey, where did you even play this before? I don't think anyone else in the city even still keeps cabinets. I'm from Night City, so yeah. I answer, lying to hide where my knowledge came from. That explains it. Wonder if any other games survived over there. Can you tell me where you played? I wouldn't mind finding some new data to make a few new machines. Sorry, they don't exist anymore. The man sighed, shaking his head. That's the way of things, isn't it? Time erodes it all down. I frowned. I mean, sure, I could see how easy it would be for data to be lost, considering how much was lost during the data crash. But the data wasn't lost. I mean, it's not completely lost. Huh? I mean, I'm a netrunner. There is tons of data out there on the net, or even on the old nets, that would probably be someone's full collection of arcade games and stuff. Hey. It's been 50 years, kid. That data is long lost, either gobbled up by AI, or just had the old servers fail. Trust me, I spend a lot of time maintaining this equipment. Imagine a server out in the desert somewhere running 24/7 to keep an AI alive. The man shook his head. It's why I keep this stuff running. A reminder of all we lost. Ouch. Old man. Don't hit me with the decay of civilization so hard, okay? Yeah. I muttered, no longer really wanting to play games. Stupid apocalypse. I sighed and moved to leave before stopping. Across the street there was an SPD car parked behind the VL4 Alvarado I had stolen. Wow. That was fast. I popped the keyshard out of my neck and tossed it into a trash can. Well, this was fun, old man. If I ever get more game data, I'll come see you. Hey. Sure, kid. He offered as he rubbed down the machine and set it back to pay mode. I walked out and down the street, disappearing out of the cops' view and getting the hell out of there. It would be a bit of a long walk back to Panam, but better than getting arrested. Okay Motoko, you ready? Honestly Panam, I've been waiting for hours for this. I offered. We were coming up on the drop-off point. The fact it was in an abandoned section of the docks, in an old industrial park that had long been overrun with trash from what little I've seen of it, made me more suspicious than nervous. I'm going to get out early. I'll be watching over you, so don't worry about them doing something stupid. If they try to attack you, just get back to your truck, I'll cover you. I said as I opened the door, moving to slip out before she pulled into the park. Wait. What do you mean watching over? I hired you to guard me. Panam. Trust me, I'll be way more effective if they don't know I'm here. I offered, and only once she sighed and nodded did I jump out of the car as she slowed, and then I raced over, leaping over the barbed wire fencing and then into the industrial park. I had my suspicions. This is the sort of place I would lure someone for a trap, not for a drop-off. I quickly found a path up an old dock building. Climbing up a shed, then the window sills to make it up on the roof. Then I crawled forward. Only a little annoyed that it was broad daylight. If this was at night, I would have less difficulty keeping myself hidden. My approach to the edge of the roof was silent despite the gravel roof. I looked over, and I was in luck. Panam hadn't finished entering the park yet, but there were already 2 cars parked in a half circle with 3 men standing around. 3? With 2 cars? Obviously there were more. I quickly pinged one of them, watching as it slipped through. And then a web of connections opened up and I rolled my eyes. Yep. Super sus. There was a sniper up on an old crane. I hefted the Nekomata and aimed it in. The guy was using an Ashura. A smart sniper. So the guy was a fucking gonk that didn't know how to snipe. I considered just one-shotting his dumb head, but thanks to my Nekomata's scope, and my Kiroshi, I quickly sent in a weapon glitch into his Ashura instead as he was in range. Smart weapons were even more susceptible to hacks than most weapons. Actually, I wonder. Since I was already glitching the weapon, I bet I could alter the targeting system. Hey. Panam pulled in, while I played with it, and only when I was absolutely sure it would work did I pull away. Okay, now to deal with the rest of these gonks. A quick repeat, and that settled it. The hack was in their system. Only one had any ice defenses, but it wasn't good enough to stop the hack. Especially not my version. With that done, I sent a message to Panam as she was parking. Cleared out the danger. Don't let them fuck with you. I didn't want to send something too long as that would distract her, but hopefully that would be enough. I watched through one eye, the other looking through the scope at the sniper fucker, as the deal went down. Panam walked out looking a little irritated as she looked over at the men. She started talking, and one of the men responded, the one that didn't have a weapon on him. Then they argued. Something was going down, something Panam wasn't happy to hear. Slowly my finger strayed closer to the trigger. If the sniper fired, it would be the last thing he ever did. Panam would probably need immediate assistance once bullets started flying. Then to my surprise, it wasn't the fuckers that moved first. Panam suddenly slammed forward, nearly ramming the guy into the car they had brought, and even had a fucking Nova pressed against his chin. I mean, sure, I had seen that she had a DR5 Nova, but I didn't think she had the chrome to actually use the damn thing. Shotgun pistols are no joke. But to my surprise, a moment later the man was laughing, and everything calmed down. He waved his buddies down, and handed over a shard to Panam. She slotted it, nodded, and then stepped back, and to my surprise everything really did calm down. Panam walked back to her truck and fiddled with something in the back seat, before coming out with a big square package wrapped in bubble wrap and handed it over. The leader of the group nodded, opened it up, and I almost wanted to blink as I realized that this whole trip was for a fucking record. A music record. He checked it, nodded, then turned away. Panam walked back to her truck, and they didn't even shoot her. Sniper dude was packing up his rifle. Well, I'll be damned. That was preem. I called out as I slid into the passenger side of Panam's truck. I didn't expect you to draw on them. She just shrugged. I know these types. They might push on weak transporters if they can, but show them you're dangerous and suddenly they are all smiles and honey. Besides, the fixer wouldn't be happy if the deal went bad. So there was pressure to keep things on the DL. Huh? Well, I guess I didn't need to disable that guy's sniper rifle after all. I was barely finished with my comment before she nearly slammed the brake. Wait, what sniper? The one up on the old shipping crane. Don't worry, I hacked his Ashura. The first bullet would have gone right into his buddy's head. I offered, but that didn't seem to reassure Panam. Fuck. That could have gone really bad. I thought you said they just needed a push? Yeah, but if they had a sniper on me, then they might have taken the risk if I pushed too far. She offered nervously, bringing up a hand to nibble at her thumb as she seemed to stew in the situation. Hey. It's all good. I had your back. You took care of everything, and the deal was done right. You traded that record for the shard? Saw that? Yeah, I got what Rogue wanted. She said with a shrug. Information is already sent, so we are all done. Wait, Rogue? I said in surprise, although I shouldn't be. Panam had worked with Rogue in 2077, I just hadn't expected her to be so connected this early. Panam looked a little uncomfortable as she sighed, and started driving again. Yeah, Rogue has a thing with the older Caldos. Old friendships. We all know we can come talk to her for shit. She's like that annoying aunt that makes fun of you and is rude, but will always be there. She offered, and I blinked. That's right. Rogue had a thing with the OG older Caldo leader. Maybe even a son out of the whole thing if the law was accurate. That makes sense, I said, earning a weird look from Panam, but then we were on the road. We had both agreed to just get back to North Carolina after the deal. No reason to stick around and potentially end up in trouble with the one trading stuff. So we turned, hit a place to grab some food and go to the bathroom, and we were out of Seattle. The large buildings soon disappeared in our rear view. It was the third night of traveling back to the city. We were somewhere out in the mountains. I don't actually know if we were back in California or not. Either way, we would get back to Night City in the morning. Considering we were well past the Raffin territory, Panam was confident we were in the clear. I was still on watch, but even I had let slip some of my professionalism. So both boys ended up in the river? Completely soaked head to toe, the bike at the very bottom. Saul cussed them out. I swear their ears were burning and they both had to keep diving to attach a harness to get the bike out. Saul made them both work on the bike until it was working again. Took months. I was chuckling at the thought. Trying to jump a river with a ramp on a borrowed bike? Yeah, that could only end in one way. They are lucky they didn't break anything. Oh yeah, but we have a good dock, so they'd have been all right. Lucky they didn't crack their skulls open. I looked across the fire at her and caught the look on her face. We hadn't talked much on the trip once we left Night City. Mostly because despite the long days of driving, Panam was used to the long drives, and I was too busy keeping watch. But that didn't mean I hadn't caught the stench of regret and homesickness all over Panam. We could stop at the camp on the way back. I offered casually, only for Panam to snap out a reply. No. I didn't say anything, but I made sure my face told a whole story as she looked at me, and then looked away. You still love Sol. You still love the camp, and your family. You aren't exiled, Raffin or anything. If I go back, I'll be admitting I was wrong. She denied instantly. With all the passion I expected. You think so? I don't think seeing your family means you were wrong. Only that you miss your family. Saul would see it that way. I would get some sermon about how I was wrong, and I should just shut up and do what he says even when he is being a fucking moron. And when he tries that, you tell him you weren't wrong. That you still think that, but he can't keep you from your family just because you both disagree. He loves you too. She glared over the fire, all the passion and fire flooding her. She didn't say anything, just glared and looked away at her meal. I didn't say anything after. It was a shame to see someone run from their family, especially when there was still love and care between them. Panam was just angry and hurt, and Saul had too much on his shoulders to agree to a ceasefire. He was the leader. It was his way or the highway. His way or the city, I guess, was more accurate. Still, that shouldn't mean she can't go and see her people. But I also couldn't force her. We didn't talk anymore that night. It was a shame, but Panam wasn't in a good place. And spending a year or two working for Rogue wasn't really going to help. Especially since she ends up working for that Rathan guy. That's right. That does happen. I would have to keep an eye on her, if he showed up. Well, I had plenty of bullets,